Alright, story time, guys. This Wednesday evening. I believe it's Wednesday. I'm going to go tell a story about the story behind Cookie, the Maverick that Tyler Hot Rod owns. Kind of a long story. I'll try to make it short and sweet. But, kind of an interesting story. Like I said, I'll try to make it short and sweet if there's a such thing. Just go. Tyler's had that thing now going on, I think, 10 years, something like that. It goes back a little farther than that. When Tyler was like 13, we built him a little Fox body Mustang, little blue car, little 302 5-speed car. He actually found that car in a junkyard with a blowed up motor. And it was a factory 302 5-speed car. And so we got it, brought it home, and built a little motor for it. Put it in there, and got it running. And we fought carburetor issues that seemed like forever. And Tyler was 15 years old-ish, and we got it running and was just fiddling around with it. And we called the car Rusty because it was rusty. And so right before Tyler turned 16, we found him a little Ford Ranger, a little 96 Ford Ranger, little 3.0 V6 manual truck. And so we bought that truck cheap, real cheap, and brought it home. That was going to be Tyler's first, car, his first 16-year-old car, that little Ranger. The Mustang was always just a play toy. And so one day, somebody comes to me and David, my brother David, and tells us about a blue Maverick out off of Arnold Road. It's in a barn. And so, because we always liked the little Mavericks. And so they told us about it and told us about in the area where it was at. But we never did go look at it. We just said whatever. So about a year passed by. My brother David calls me and says he found that blue Maverick. Sure enough, in the same area that boy told us about. And the guy, I think David had stopped in there, and the guy priced it. It was kind of high. And I told David it is what it is, whatever. And so about another year passes by, and that's when Tyler was about to turn 16. And I was actually out in that area doing a call, and I thought about that Maverick. And I said, I'm going to see if I can find it. So I drove over in that area, and you really couldn't miss it, to be honest with you. I turned on the road and kind of looked to my right and seen the front end sticking out of a barn. And I said, well, there it is. So I turned around and found the driveway and went up there and knocked on the guy's door. Well, this door was where the guy that owned the Maverick, the door was way up off the ground of the big deck. So I knocked on the door, and I just make a habit. If I knock on somebody's door, I walk back down on the driveway, you don't want to scare nobody. I don't know this guy. So the gentleman comes to the door, and I'm kind of standing out in the driveway, and he comes out of the door, and he's staring at me. And I think to myself, oh boy, this guy's going, he's pissed that I'm on his property, whatever. And he comes walking on these steps, and he comes walking across the driveway, and he said, I've been waiting on you. And I kind of caught me off guard. I said, been waiting on me? He said, yeah. He said, you a Lester, ain't you? I said, yeah. I said, I am. I didn't know this guy from Adam. He said, you a Maverick boy, ain't you? And I chuckled. I said, yeah. I said, that's what they called us, the Maverick boys, back in the day. That's all me, Todd, David had was Mavericks. And I told him, he said, well, your brother stopped by here and asked about that Maverick. I said, yeah. I said, that's the reason why I stopped by here. I wanted to see it. It looked like a pretty nice little Maverick. And he said, yeah. So he put a price on it, and I couldn't afford it. And I walked down and looked at it, nice little Maverick. So I was like, all right. I went home. Well, I mentioned it to Hot Rod, and he wanted to go look at it. And Hot Rod's only 16 years old. He's about to turn 16. And I said, Hot Rod, you ain't got that kind of money. And he was on my butt about it. Want to go see it. So I said, all right. So finally, that weekend rolled around, and me and Hot Rod jumped in the truck, went over there, and hated to bother the guy, super great guy. His name was Mike. So I went over there and knocked on his door. Mike come out there, and I told Mike straight up, I said, I don't want to waste your time. I was like, he ain't got no money, he just wants to look at it. Old Mike told him, he said, you bring me X amount of dollars, you can have it. And it was cheaper than what he originally quoted us. And old Hot Rod was like, I want that car. I said, Hot Rod, you ain't got a pot to piss in when to throw it out of. So we went back home. Hot Rod still had that little Ranger that we just got him, and he had old Rusty, that Mustang. Old Hot Rod put that dang Mustang, and he put that Ranger, I think he had a little pew-pew that he had, I think he put an Xbox. He put all of it on Marketplace. And it probably wasn't a week so later, Hot Rod come in with a stack of cash. He said, let's go get that Maverick. And I said, oh crap. So I said, all right. So we loaded up the truck trailer, and I went over there, and we got there, and Mike, he said, you know, he said, he let me keep a couple of small things. He said, I'll lower the price even more. And he told old Hot Rod, he said, if it wasn't for who your daddy and your uncle was, he said, you wouldn't be getting this car. And so I thought that was kind of crazy. I was like, wow. So we fired that Maverick up, drove it up on the trailer. If you actually go to my YouTube channel that's connected to this, you'll actually see that video of us loading that Maverick up. And we loaded that Maverick up. He had the factory grabber hood in the basement, and we got that grabber hood. And this is where the story kind of takes a twist. And so Hot Rod, he had a couple extra dollars in his pocket because, you know, Mike took less than what he wanted for it. So we're headed home and over to Chapel Hill, and we drive by this red 67 Ford F100. I tried to buy a dozen times. Old man wanted a fortune for this little 61 F100 long bed. Old Hot Rod said, stop. He said, I'm gonna make him an offer on it. I said, Hot Rod, I said, that guy, I think he wanted like $5 or $6 grand for this truck. And we stopped in the road, had the Maverick on the trailer, stopped in the road. Hot Rod went and knocked on the door. Old man come to the door, and he remembered me. And old Hot Rod said, he said, put a price on the truck, I'll buy it right now. Old man said, give me $1,000 for it, you can have it. I said, you're kidding me. Hot Rod, he whipped out $1,000, paid for that truck. So we went home, unloaded the Maverick, come back, got the 67, took it home, unloaded it. Well, we put the original grabber hood on the Maverick. Well, Tyler's out there washing this Maverick. Just got it. Like, he hadn't had it 24 hours. And he's out there washing it. Well, you know, I take pictures of everything. So I take a quick picture of him washing that car, you know, him standing beside it, you know. I go in the house and sit down, and I'm reading the Carcraft magazine. Well, in the back of the Carcraft magazine, there's a section where, like, readers' rides, where you show your readers' rides. And it had an email there, carcraft.com, whatever it was. So I had just took that picture of Tyler with his Maverick in that Ford truck, and I sent it in the Carcraft magazine. You know, kind of told him the quick story behind it. Didn't think nothing about it. About 3 or 4 months later, I'm at my mom's house, and I start getting alerts. So I had good service out there, so I was like, what's going on? And old boy by the name of Charlie Cheatham, he messaged me, and like I said, I wasn't getting very many messages. Old Charlie, he messaged me, and all it said was Tyler Carcraft magazine. I said, what? I still didn't make the connection. I kind of forgot. So I make a beeline home, and I'm still confused as heck. Like, what? So I had a subscription to Carcraft magazine. So I was really confused. So when I pulled in the driveway, I jumped out, and sure enough, Carcraft magazine in the mailbox like it was every month. And I got in the house and sat down and opened it, and lo and behold, there's Tyler in Carcraft magazine. In the back of that magazine, I like to fell over. I said, you are kidding me. I said, in all my years of cars, here Hot Rod is in Carcraft magazine. And then to add to that, so that was like crazy to me. I was like, this is insane. Hot Rod sold those 67 Ford truck, by the way, of course, you know, but he kept that Maverick, and he still has Cookie to this day. But what's a crazy twist to that little story was he sold his Mustang, and he sold that little Ranger and everything else he owned. And then fast forward, several years later, Hot Rod calls me and says, "Guess what I found?" I said, "What?" He said, "I found Rusty." I said, "You're kidding." He goes, "Nope. It hasn't been driven much at all since he sold it." And he ended up buying Rusty back for half of what he sold it for. So to this day, he still has that dang rusty ass old Mustang Fox body. It runs good, I guess. But he still has Cookie, that Maverick. But just a crazy story how it went full circle and got that dang Maverick, got the Maverick and ended up getting Rusty back. And of course he has CGR too. He's got more cars than who knows what to do with. But I just thought that was a crazy story how he got that Maverick and ended up Carcraft magazine and ended up getting Rusty back in the end. And yeah, hopefully he'll have that car way after I'm long gone. So it's a nice little car. And Hot Rod will probably comment on here and he can post a picture of the car or whatever he does best. I'll tag him in this post so you could see the Maverick on his TikTok. So, all right, guys, y'all have a good one.